Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series, the Unported playlist, where I take a look at some of my favorite unported arcade games of all time. And today we're jumping right into Fear Fright Land, also known as Haunted Museum 2. This is the sequel to Haunted Museum, a game I've either already showed on the channel or will be shortly, and even though this is Haunted Museum 2, it has nothing to do with a museum. That doesn't mean it's not an amazing light gun arcade game though, because I do love it. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to like what we do and want to support the channel, we have a Patreon link down below as well. But if you've ever played Carnival from Midway back in the 90s, this feels like the spiritual successor. It is that kind of weird, campy horror vibe, and it has a lot of clowns. And unfortunately, it also has panda bears you have to shoot. I feel a little bit bad about that. But if you watched the video previously on Haunted Museum, this is a series from Taito in the haunted vein. But I like this one slightly less thematically, but slightly more gameplay-wise because there's a lot more mechanics. You'll see here that our mission is to shoot all the clowns, and we do have a sight, but there are hostages all around them, so you need to be really careful with your aiming. So this gives a little bit more of a mix-up to the light gun genre. You're not just constantly unloading your clip and trying to shoot your enemies, you also need to rescue people and be quite careful as to how you're doing that. But you get a lot of story in this game as well, and it feels very House of the Dead-esque. I don't want to call this a House of the Dead clone, but it's kind of borrowing a lot of story inspiration here and there. But it's absolutely an amazing game if you're into the light gun genre, and if you've been watching my channel at all, you know that I absolutely love it. It is my favorite. I don't really care about clowns. I used to know somebody who was like deathly afraid of them. If you even so much as mention clown, she would not be in a good mood. I don't think they're scary at all whatsoever, so for me, maybe the setting isn't as effective, but it gets weirder and a little stranger, and it definitely has a vibe, and it's taken that vibe up to 11 across the finish line throughout the entire game. And this is based on the Type X hardware, so you can play this on a Windows machine. The one caveat to that is I will say you have to run it in XP compatibility mode or else it will not start. It will freeze on the first FMV intro and it will not work. So just remember that if you decide to download it later, run it in XP compatibility mode. But it is just a fun and spectacular game, and I feel like we don't get enough light gun games anymore. Consoles don't really get them whatsoever. There's a new Mission Impossible game out from Sega. I have not seen a cabinet for it yet, but if I find out it is in Chicago, I will definitely go and spend the money to play it from start to finish because I want more of these light gun games to keep coming out. But the great thing about the Type X and On series of hardware from Taito is it's all just a computer in a box, so running these games on your PC is relatively easy depending on how you want to do it. I can't really tell you how to do it or leave you a link, but if you do want to play the game, if you just Google the name of it and on the operating system you're probably using, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find it relatively quickly. But as far as the gameplay is concerned, it does change things ever so slightly compared to Haunted Museum. You'll see that I do have an ammo counter there, and enemies as you destroy them are going to leave clips behind and you need to shoot them to re-up on your ammo. I never once ran out of ammo playing this game, and I'm playing it on normal difficulty, but if you play it on hard, ammo can get a little bit scarcer, but honestly, if you run out of ammo, you just die and you get a restock, and it doesn't really matter that much. It feels kind of like an artificial mechanic, but you'll see there's boxes in the back that you can shoot for different weapons, for health upgrades, and for different coins to give you a little bit better of a score. But the game is just hyper inventive, even more so than Haunted Museum with its kind of fantasy setting. Now we're playing upside down because the first enemy is a mirror that flips your perspective. And as you go throughout the game, every level is relatively unique, has different enemies, different bosses, but it carries that clown motif all the way through. And I will say this is one of the longest arcade light gun games I have ever played. The long play for this is about 45 minutes, and I was playing relatively well. So there is a lot of depth in this game. It almost feels long enough like Taito was planning on releasing this for the home. Maybe they could have put it on PlayStation 4 with the Move controllers, or maybe they could have put it on PC, but it definitely feels long enough where they were thinking maybe we should bring this to the home user and not just the arcade, because if you were pumping quarters into this to beat it, it would be a really long game and it would cost you a relatively large amount of money. But as amazing as this game is to look at and fun it is to play, I do love the kind of circusy soundtrack as well, so I'll let you guys watch the cutscene and a little bit of the gameplay, and I'll come back in about a minute and tell you more why. If you never played this game, you should.
It's strangely quiet.
Imagine if something came out of those lockers. Ah! so many of them!
Run! Head for the side exit!
They won't open! They're here!
Look for the key! Move carefully! This one?
Yes, got it!
Now, if you are afraid of clowns, that was probably absolutely terrifying and you probably turned the video off, so I'm probably not talking to you anymore. But I do love the little bit of extra mechanic there where you're trying to find the right key to get through the door and you have that flashlight. If you pick the wrong one, which I didn't do there, but I have played the game before, those clowns are going to come into the room and you are going to have to battle them. But I just love how far they're driving that clown mechanic. And if you are afraid of them, this would be a really impactful game. But here we go, fighting old Bone Daddy here. Kind of reminds me of Castlevania 64, except a lot better graphically. But it's just so much fun. And what you're seeing right now, this entire video so far, is just the opening stage of Fear Fright Land. I have not even gone on to stage 2 yet. This game has so much content and so much replayability, and you can play with 2 players as well. This will work with a mouse, this will work with the Wiimote, this will work with the Cinnamon light gun. Granted, they all take some setup if you're not just doing mouse play, but otherwise, you can play this on your PC today, alone or with a friend, and it is just an absolutely spectacular ton of fun. But what I really love about this game, even if I don't care for the setting as much as Haunted Castle, is just how much they drive home all the weirdness to it. And you'll see here, we've just gotten one of the 5 statues, and we're going to get a little menu that comes up, and you're going to see how many different branching paths this game has. And now that we've gone through the first stage, you can select. You've only seen 20% of the game, and that took about 7 minutes to get from start to finish. I just love how long this game is, and that's why I really do feel like this was intended to be released for a console or for a PC at some point in time. And hey, I mean, it still could happen. You never know, but I highly, highly doubt it. But leave me a comment down below. Have you seen this game in arcades? And if so, what did you think of it? Because I have not seen Fear Fright Land or Haunted Museum ever in an arcade. They did come to the US, maybe they just weren't that popular and they left the floor relatively quickly, because for me, these are games that I knew existed, but I've only ever played on PC, which is amazing that we can play them, but I would love to see an arcade cabinet at some point in time. But as we move on, this game gets weird. Of course we have clowns, we've been having clowns this entire time, but now the artists are going to change what the clowns are, and all of a sudden they're clown mermaids, and that's just the weirdest shit I've ever seen. I love it, it's intriguing, they're crawling towards you and it's creepy, but who came up with mermaid clowns? It's genius, but that person's mind may be ever so slightly warped. And the game is just going to keep getting weirder and weirder, and that's what I really do like about it, even if I don't care for the carnival aesthetic. And that was one of my complaints about Carnival when I did that episode last year for Halloween, was that incredible game, great gameplay, don't really love the campy aesthetic, and I would say the same thing about Fear Fright Land. But the fact that this game just goes so far to drive the weirdness home, that's what I really do love about it. But if you love light gun arcade games and you haven't played this or Haunted Museum yet, I highly recommend you do so, because I love this genre, and it's one that's definitely fallen out of popularity, I feel like. I've always loved light gun games since they were in arcades in the 90s, and I will continue to play each and every new one that comes out. And unfortunately, there's a lot of new light gun arcade games that I haven't seen in arcades that I can't get working on my PC like you see here. So hopefully in the future, some of those games that are currently unported either do get ported, or I'm able to figure out a way to play them at home. But I just love the bosses as well. This creepy Beetlejuice-esque train that's just coming at you that you have to shoot in the face is very quickly going to morph into something that looks much more evil and much stranger. And that's the fun of Fear Fright Land, is it's constantly showing you something new, showing you something unique, and it just has intensity to beat the band, to make it feel like this game is never going to let up. But yeah, leave me a comment down below. Have you ever seen this before? Have you ever played it? Have you ever heard of it? I feel like a lot of people are going to say they don't know what this is, and hopefully you guys decide to play it afterwards. Short of that, as I mentioned earlier, if you could do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. I will be back next Sunday with our episode of Unported Playlists. I'll have videos throughout the week as well. But we're going to destroy this demon train, and we're going to go on to the next level. We'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye.
I feel sick.